And we're live. Welcome to the Midday Show. Hello, how are you? I did sort of think of doing it outside today, but I think I might get blinded by the sun. So I'm sitting here. I've got a fan blowing cold air this way. I was wondering if it's warm enough for all of us. I'm not complaining. I'm not complaining because every year we get these people saying, "Oh, we haven't had a summer this year. We haven't had a summer this year." So for those moaners or for the short of memory, we have had a summer this year. We're having it now, and I have to say, I am enjoying it. Let's move straight on to our guest for the day. Just before I bring her on, you're probably expecting Russ Kane. He's out being a celebrant today. Literally, he said on Facebook, 3 weddings and a funeral, which is a typical Russ showbizy kind of pithy little fridge magnet line. And he will be doing a fine job at that, so he's asked me to fill in today. So, Neil, in for us on the Monday Midday Show. You're not going mad. It's not Wednesday. And today's guest, I would like to welcome to the podium, to the stage. It's only Sarah Davis, ladies and gentlemen. Hello.
Hi.
Hi. How are you?
All right, thank you. Yes.
It's really lovely to have you on. Thank you for agreeing to be on. We've got a fascinating topic to talk about today, because you're a copywriter. Let me put that on the table first of all. I'm going to get the backstory in just a second, but just to throw forward, I love the subject of copywriting because I'm not any good at it. And what I find with a lot of people is they could be brilliant people, brilliant business people, but really crap marketers. And I find that with a lot of, and these are really successful business people, but marketing is a skill in and of itself. I began to learn about online marketing since I started reading Joe Vitale books. I don't know if you're familiar with him. Big, famous, billionaire marketer. But it is still quite the art. So I'm going to be hopefully learning about that. But you've got an interesting twist on it. You're the marketing and parenting blended, right?
Yes. I was a primary school teacher for over 20 years. And I was literacy lead and in charge of the libraries. My degree was English. So that was very much my thing. Reading and writing, always my thing. But then the education system changed, and it went from being a teacher who was allowed to be creative and to teach children through drama and novels and enjoyment and fun and still get the academic results as well, to being very much a different setup. It was all computer based, very much kind of everybody was doing the same thing, and creativity began to be disapproved of almost, which was really sad. And not the way I enjoyed working.
That's a hell of a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, it needs both, doesn't it? It needs the logic and the academia, but it needs an equal balance of creativity. In my opinion, to lose the creative side of it is an absolute tragedy.
Yeah,
it was absolute tragedy, and it becomes rigid, and it becomes tick boxing, and it also becomes and without creativity, it's very hard to give each student the individual focus that they want because everybody's different. If everyone's got to fit into this one particular box, it's like putting 1,000 square pegs in 1,000 round holes, and for me, it just won't work.
No, and it just wasn't for me anymore. I loved teaching. I loved teaching children who were enthusiastic and motivated and positive, and having to just put the whiteboard on at the beginning of every lesson because that's what I was being instructed to do.
Right.
Was not the way. I mean, yes, the interactive whiteboard, that's a fantastic tool for students and for teachers, but I didn't feel that my whole lesson should revolve around it. It's like it should be an additional tool. It should be something extra to bring in, to add.
So at some point you went, enough.
I just got to that point.
And you struck out by yourself, yeah? Is that how it happened?
So also being a parent myself as well.
Yeah.
I wanted to be around for my family more. And I decided, well, basically what happened, it all came about quite unexpectedly because I'd been looking for a change for a while. And my husband said to me, why don't you be a copywriter? And I'd actually said, well, to be honest, I've never heard of a copywriting, firstly. And it was one of his customers that was a copywriter. And I looked into it and I thought, yes, that's right up my street. However, I thought I might have to go back to kind of learning from the start, kind of almost as an apprentice, 9 to 5, and that wouldn't fit around our family. So I kind of shelved the idea, and then I to kind of, well, it's kind of a complex story, because this is where the book came in. While I was up for the 3 a.m. feeds with my baby son, I unexpectedly wrote a book.
As you do.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, how did that happen? You were feeding, and then suddenly the pen flew into your hand, and you accidentally wrote a book. Is that how it happened?
Almost. Basically, I mean, I was 40 when I had our son. We'd wanted children a long time before, but, you know, for one reason or another, it hadn't happened.
Sure.
And so I was 40 when I had him, and I left work at 3:10, and I had him at 5:30, 4.5 weeks early.
Wow.
So it was a massive shock to the system. It was a massive shock to my customers that I was serving in the library part-time as well. You know, that was like having contractions in the library, and this poor customer was like, you know, are you okay? And I was like, well, it's not very professional of me.
When you accidentally wrote a book, it's almost like you accidentally had a baby at the same time. It's a series of happy accidents with you, really, isn't it, Sarah?
Yeah, pretty much. So yes, he was 4 weeks in, so I wasn't expecting him to come then. I hadn't finished work, you know, and so I said, well, I know it's not very professional of me, but I think I'm having a baby. It's like, oh my gosh. So anyway, I managed to get to the hospital and have my baby, but he was early, so I hadn't got as far as maternity leave, hadn't got as far as the second of my antenatal classes, and it was all quite a shock to the system.
Yeah.
And I think, so when he was 4.5 months old, I was just sitting there feeding in the early hours. It was kind of dark and calm and quiet, and, you know, didn't have telly on or radio or phone or anything like that.
And the perfect conditions for the muse to strike.
Yeah. And it just suddenly, these poems about being a new mum popped into my head. And when I put him down to sleep after the feed, I wrote the 2 of them down that had come into my head, and said to my husband the next day, something weird happened in the middle of the night. Suddenly I produced these 2 poems. He was like, that is odd. And because I wasn't, although I would write the occasional thing for school, just if I needed a poem that had alliteration and personification, needed something like that, then I would sometimes just write something that fit. But I wasn't a writer per se. And these weren't highfalutin academic poems. These weren't sort of long-winded, waffly. They were direct, straight to the point, right from the heart, much more kind of sort of humorous, dry wit, just living in those experiences, those moments. And it kept happening. So frequently I'd be sitting there, and the next one would come into my head, and the next one. And by the time he was 8 months old, there were 40 poems. And people said, oh, you should get them published. So I thought, I could try. And I looked into it, and I just kind of randomly contacted publishers who said, oh, we don't accept unagented authors. We don't accept poetry.
That sounds about right. Yeah. I think they say that to everybody.
So that was the case. And I thought, you know what? My baby's 9 months old. I'm really enjoying being a mum. I'm not bothered for doing all this. And I just thought, I'll put them in a folder, and one day when he's old enough, I'll share them with him, because it's a reflection of those kind of moments, but also the crazy times of being a new mum. And I thought I'll share it with him when he's older.
Brilliant.
And then 5 years later, I was reading something, a mum related publication, and I just thought, I'm going to get my poems out again. And I read them, and I thought, you know what, they could actually help people who are going through this new mum experience to kind of normalize how everything feels. Sort of wonderful and amazing, but also chaotic, and you're a bit shell-shocked and exhausted and all those things. So I looked into publishing again. Baby Days came out in 2018, and it was recommended in Mother and Baby magazine, and they're 3 of the best funny books. I was invited to speak at Mother Care and Mamas and Papas. They said if I can speak about some aspect of parenting for newborns, then they would be happy for me to share my poems.
I get the feeling that these poems were meant to be out there. It's almost like the universe said, nah, you're not going to waste those. They're not going in the folder. They're going out there. Forgive Philip Harley. He's our resident comedian, versing while nursing. Very good, Philip. Now, go on.
Yes.
I can only apologise for him, Sarah. I'm sorry. He doesn't.
No worries.
You were saying.
So the book came out, and my son loved it, because he was 5 by then, and he was in year 1. And he was.
And did he appreciate it, like the nuances of the chaos and the wonderfulness of it?
I think he he did a little bit, and I think
Yeah.
the thing is, like, you know, he said, "Can I take it in for show and tell?" When the book came out, it's like,
Oh,
"Oh, my family's
brilliant.
a poet. Can I take it in for show and tell?" And he had a wonderful teacher who, she said, "Well, is there anything suitable for him to read, or is it really just for parents?" And anyway, he chose to read what we call in our house the poo poems. You know, the poems about nappies.
Ah,
And
yes.
the children were rolling about, apparently. And then he went on to do a complete Q&A session about the book and about how I came to write the book, because all these children were asking questions and interested. And then his teacher collared me at the end of the day and said there were just a few that I couldn't answer. And so, you know, can you answer these questions so I can feed them back to my class of 5 and 6-year-olds? So yeah, he's
I've heard of building a following and another happy accident.
yeah.
That's the third one. We've already been talking for 11 minutes. That's three happy accidents so far. This is intriguing. Go on.
Yeah, so it was amazing, and you know, he was really chuffed to have a book that was inspired by and dedicated to him.
Yeah.
Um,
What's his
so
name?
Matthew,
Matthew.
can I share the 2 poo poems just to give you an idea of the style?
I was going to say we can. Obviously, we all want to hear one. I was going to say that, so I'm glad you brought it up first. Let me just share this from Asa Don Brown. Meet Dr. Asa Don Brown. He's very high up in the psychological community in the USA and Canada, and he's a regular guest on our show. Sarah, I love poetry. I absolutely love poetry, especially poetry that contains a message. My first poem, Pearl Street 2020, was published in Boulder, Colorado. It's the same street that recently incurred a terrorist attack. But yeah. So a fan of poetry there. Go on, let's hear them then.
Well, well, to be honest, like I said, they're a mix. So the first one was the sentimental one.
Mm-hmm.
So if I read that to start and then I read the poo poems, you'll see the complete and utter contrast. So
Come on then. The
pardon
forum
me,
is yours.
everybody. Apologies, it's lunchtime. This is probably not the best content for lunchtime.
That's all right. We're all over 18. We can handle it.
But getting to know you. So this was one of the kind of sentimental ones to start with.
Mm.
The scan and seeing the beating of your tiny little heart, knowing that it's really only just the very start, growing ever bigger as you struggle to find room, feeling kicks and hiccups as you move inside the womb, hearing your first cries just as you come into the world, beginning your life's journey soon to be unfurled, the gripping of my finger with your tiny little hand, the feelings and emotions only parents understand.
Oh.
So it starts kind of with those, and then
Yeah.
I go on through labour and birth, registering the birth, health visitors. Basically, the health visitor said, take on board all our advice and all that we suggest, then make your own decisions and do what you think is best.
Nice.
And perfect advice. So, yeah, so here are these 2 that my son read to the class of 5 and 6-year-olds. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Asa. Nappy days. Oh my goodness, he's not happy. He has got a filthy nappy. He just let out such a trump. The explosion made me jump. Catapulted him off my knee. Hardly dared to look and see. It's on his back and legs as well. I can't describe the awful smell. I had better make it snappy. His feet are getting in the nappy. I'm worried about his poorly tum. Don't want to seem a fussy mum, but it has given me a fright. I want to check that he's all right. Doctor said that this much poo is common. It's what babies do.
There you go.
So you can see it's kind of reassuring for those mums that go through that experience when they have the first.
I know exactly what you mean. We talk about on particularly on the Wednesday version of this show, but we can do it anytime, about mental well-being, mental health, and not just knowing you're not alone in an experience is not a solution, but it's the first step towards a healing or improvement, in my opinion. Certainly, and the nature of any kind of mental condition, I always say this, is you feel like you're the only one. And this wasn't a mental condition, this was a natural thing, but you could still feel quite isolated and alone. And I imagine people do. So for that reason, it really will help them. It's lovely. Do yourself a favor, or do Matthew a favor, don't pull that one out on his 18th birthday party and read it to all his mates. He will never, ever, ever forgive you.
No. And the other one you read out was this one, roly polies. We can't change your nappy when you're rolling round and round. We weren't anticipating this new game that you found. First did roly-polies, you'd hear us say, well done. But in the middle of a change, for us it's not much fun. You seem to think it's funny. Why aren't we laughing too? But we can't have roly-polies with a nappy full of poo. You're flipping your legs over and your bottom's in the air. Nappy change a two-man job, we have no hands to spare. Then when the struggle's over, you look up with a grin, as if to say we're done now, let the wriggling begin. So those were his two favourites. There were things like camera shy. What's that you're pointing at me? I don't like it very much. It isn't even something that I'm allowed to touch. It stops me seeing you, mummy. Hide your face from view when I am busy smiling right back up at you. So it's all those different things that just popped into my head about new motherhood. And what you were saying, absolutely, about the kind of the mental health side of it and the mental well-being. And it's so important for new parents, new mums and new dads. And
hugely. Yeah.
And I actually ran a session as well for new mums who were there with their babies up to 9 months old.
You ran a what? Sorry, I didn't hear that.
I ran a workshop for new mums.
Right.
And they were there with their babies who were up to 9 months old. So the babies were playing with the toys in the cafe on the carpet, and
the mums could have some adult company at last. Yeah. And swap stories. That's so important. Peer support. It's peership, isn't it?
Yeah. And what I did was I read out a few poems just to get them started. Ones along the lines of when we're trying to work out what our child is trying to communicate and how we learn to read their signals and things like that. And so I read out several poems, some of the humorous ones, some of the more serious ones and sentimental ones, just a small selection. And then I asked them to write on a Post-it. I had a selection of Post-it notes, and I asked them to write down one on each Post-it note, emotions that they felt in the last, since they had their baby. So on each Post-it, they wrote one emotion, and then I collected them all in anonymously and then put them up on a whiteboard. So they could see, sitting there was 9 new mums, the whole range of emotions that all the other mums were feeling too. So from elation to exhaustion, and, from confused to troubled to excited.
Because I think something that we do in this culture, I think as a lot of it in Western culture, is we think we shouldn't feel emotions.
Yeah.
And we think our emotions are inappropriate, and we can fall into traps of, well, if I was a good person, good mother, if I was a good blah, 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 so says the inner critic, I wouldn't feel this. Resentment's another one. You know what I mean? If I was a good person, I wouldn't feel this resentment towards it. And then that adds an extra layer. So just to allow people to be human, to go, actually, we're all human, we all feel it, and it's allowed, and it's okay. And that's actually, that is a key, that acceptance, and I'm sure Asa Dawn Brown would agree with me, is a key. And Dr. Asa, if I'm wrong, or Sarah, if I'm wrong, correct me. Dr. Asa says you should check out the following. He's always got some good contacts, Dr. Asa. He's a good one to have in your Rolodex. I'm showing my age by using that word. You should check out the following pages: Poetry Foundation, Poetry Magazine, and Poetry London.
Thank you.
Welcome. There we go.
Yep, I shall write those down. And
no problem. I'll tell you what. Don't worry about taking notes. I'll when we come off air, I'll put it back up on the screen so you can grab it then, so you can get what you need.
So what I did with those parents is we started off doing that, and then we had a general open conversation. Now, I'm not a counsellor or a psychologist, and I made that clear from the beginning. And I had phone numbers and websites and places that people, if they felt that things, struck a chord, triggered anything, then they could then go and, sort of get that support that they may need afterwards. But we had a general open conversation, and then I gave them paper, colouring pens, pencils, and I just said, the creativity, I think, helped me to work through my feelings and emotions as a new mum. Pouring it all out in poetry really got lots of that. It helped me to cope as I was going along, I think.
And the style of teaching that you were trapped in would have never allowed that kind of healing to happen, would it?
No. So I guess, so what I did was I said to them, have this paper. I said, write a letter to somebody, write a letter to your baby, or to your partner, or write a letter that you wouldn't necessarily send to somebody whose conflicting advice you're finding difficult, or something like that, to kind of exercise those feelings that when you get
Because they say write your feelings down, but don't send them. Excuse me. Move through the levels of emotion, but don't send the letter.
yeah
And then it's a way of, how can I put it, taking responsibility for your own emotions with the container and space to do it.
yes, so I was kind of giving them that space and that freedom to do that, and to bring out their own creativity, or to draw a picture. If they were more kind of artistic than wordy, then maybe they might like to draw a picture or something like that. And the comments I got back were things like, it was so much so different, so refreshingly different from other mums and babies groups, where everybody tells you the good bits, but they don't tell you the bits they're struggling with. And this was it. I was talking about, it might be
And
that your
that's
baby's
the danger
feeding but not
nowadays with social
sleeping.
media, because on social media it's very
Yeah,
easy to think that everyone's having a wonderful life apart from you.
yeah,
And I've actually seen people get depressed over that, and nothing could be further from the truth.
no.
It's so interesting. Yeah, no, I'm agreeing with 100% everything you say. Keep going, please.
So I did that. I also spoke at the launch event of Baby Week Leeds too. There were 80 people there who were there were medical professionals, people from the council, maternity services, new parents, and I did a speaker slot there, live, so like in person, to about 80 people about
Do you
the
enjoy public
importance.
speaking?
It's something that I've learnt to do. I have to say, as I was confident as a teacher, and I can still go, I still do an occasional day's supply because I still love teaching. So I will
Yeah,
walk into a supply class with a class I don't know, no problem at all.
yeah,
But I think speaking to a room full of adults wasn't something I was particularly used to. I was
no.
interviewed live on BBC Radio Leeds, and I have to say I was still shaking an hour after I'd come off the radio.
Yeah,
I sounded confident, but again, it's a learned skill, I think. And so
it is.
I was still
I don't know
shaking.
if you know this statistic, but the most common fear human beings have is the fear of public speaking. That's number one, above death, which comes in at number two. So that's how scared we are of public speaking.
Well, I was driven by getting the book out there because I thought it could really help people.
And motivation really helps. It helps you push through.
Yeah. And I think this is what's motivated me generally, because I was doing, so I did that talk, and I did that talk was around the theme of connections, because connections was their topic. So I talked about how it's important to make new connections with other new parents, but also to understand that your current connections may change. So reconnecting with your partner, connecting with your friends who haven't got children, and kind of getting over those initial hurdles, and making connections that will serve you as well as serve your child. And so I spoke on that theme at that event. And I spoke
Brilliant.
about, for mother care and mums and papas, I spoke about being a breastfeeding mum and the hurdles and getting over the hurdles. And I told them the information that I found out in that process while I was going through those hurdles that I didn't know beforehand. So that, like, for example, if
They say the quickest way to learn something is to teach it, and there's a lot of truth in that, I think, isn't there?
yeah, and I think like I didn't know when my baby was in, because he was prem, he was put in neonatal overnight,
Oh, right.
and he'd fed on delivery, but then he wouldn't feed. And I sat there and tried for 3 hours. And in the end, they said, because he's in neonatal, we need to tube feed him formula. And I was devastated because
Oh,
I'd wanted to breastfeed because it was what I wanted to do for him. And I felt I was, everybody's choice is up to them, and fed is better than not fed.
of
And,
course.
that's what they say, like, and some people will push down, it has to be breastfeeding, but at the end of the day, it has to be what's right for the baby and for the mother. And so, but for me, I wanted to breastfeed, and I felt I was going to be letting him down and my husband down if I didn't. But what I didn't know was that when my milk came through later fully and he was stronger, I would be able to take him off of the formula and still be able to breastfeed for 8 months. And I
Oh,
didn't know that. I also didn't know if you had mastitis that you'd still be able to breastfeed, and all these things. And
So
so
am I understanding properly? So to not breastfeed at first is better to allow the milk to build up as it becomes stronger?
not that so much. It's just that some babies will feed immediately, but because my baby was premature, 4.5 weeks early, they said he was too tired, so they needed to tube feed him formula.
Understood.
Um, if we'd been downstairs in transitional care, the next level of support, they would have left it. They would have let me keep trying for a couple of days, but
Right.
because he was in neonatal and premature, they
I
had to
I
feed
can't
him.
believe that how much you've done, and it all started from feeding your baby. It's we talk a lot about creativity on the show as well, because the creative spark, the muse, if you like it fascinates me because there's something a little bit mystical about it. You can't make it happen, but when it happens, you can't stop it. It's like being in flow state. Once you're in it, everything happens like magic, and then afterwards, you think, "How did I do that?" It's kind of along those lines, and to break it down as best I can in sort of sciencey terms. You were number one, totally in the moment. That's necessary for creativity. Number two, you were relaxed
Yeah,
and open, being relaxed and open. And number three, you were in. I don't know if you're familiar with NLP, but in NLP,
yeah,
but you were in the right state, and you were in the
yeah,
state of being a mum. So
yeah.
perfect.
I was in flow. I was very much in that moment, and I
Yes.
think this is why the poems work, because
Mm.
they work for other
And you can
people.
tell poems that are written in flow. They've got a slight timbre. Is that the word? There's something different about something that's written in flow or performed in flow that something isn't. It can be good, but flow just it rockets the performance, rockets it. It's an extraordinary
Yeah,
thing to study.
and I think it's really funny that they all came out rhyming. It
Well,
was
that's
just
what
very
poetry's supposed to
natural.
do, isn't
Well,
it?
the thing is, you have poetry. Poetry is like a collection of ideas with imagery, and so you can have poetry that is just kind of they're statements rather than rhymes. So not all poems rhyme, but these just came out that way. I didn't set out to write rhyming poetry.
No, I
It just
remember our English teacher taught us those poems that didn't rhyme, and I always thought, in my
yeah.
simplistic way, poetry's supposed to rhyme. It's not a poem if it doesn't rhyme. And I'm probably wrong, but that's what I thought at the time in my I don't know 15-year-old brain. It didn't make any sense to me.
If I can read you this one, because
Yeah, come on then.
here's one that doesn't rhyme. And this one was called Our Little Miracle because we had waited so long for our baby. And I was 40, as I say, and my husband was 41. We'd been together since our mid-20s, but
Well,
things just didn't happen. I went through a period of illness, and then things just didn't happen automatically. And so eventually I had him at 40.
right.
And the One Born Every Minute series, where they actually filmed people having their babies.
I
Um,
vaguely remember it. Yeah.
yeah. Well, funnily enough, I was asked if I'd like to be on that, and I said,
Okay.
no, thank you, not a chance. And in fact, they actually rang as well again after I'd had him because he was early. It's like, you're too
Right.
late.
You had your chance.
But I didn't want to do it. It wasn't something that I was ever going to do.
Yeah.
But that it was just the one born every minute line inspired me. So this poem was called Our Little Miracle.
Come on then.
One born every minute, that's us maybe, but not to us. Our precious firstborn, transfixed by your every sound and move, watching your chest rise and fall. Our little miracle. One born every minute, that's us maybe, but not to us. In those first minutes, lost in the moment, our world stood still. You've changed our lives forever, our little miracle. One born every minute, that's us maybe, but not to us. Birth, a natural thing every day all over the world, but to us you'll always be our little miracle.
That's really lovely.
So it doesn't rhyme, but it's poetry.
But it's still lovely. It's still lovely. Yeah, that's really it's really lovely. Yeah,
And one of the
it still makes sense. Yeah, it does.
yeah, one of the things, when you sort of said earlier about peer support, one of the ones that I often read out is called Mums and Babies Group.
Mm.
My local mums and babies group helps to keep me sane, with adult conversation to stimulate my brain.
Mm-hmm.
When I am feeling anxious, it helps to get me through, to hear that all the other mums have fears and worries too.
Yeah.
We talk about our babies and get stuff off our chest, and reassure each other we can only do our best. We have a laugh and giggle about the week we've had, sharing our experience, the good things and the bad. By the time our tea is finished and we've put the world to rights, we're re-energized to face another week of sleepless nights.
Oh, brilliant. Really good. Really, really good.
So the poems go on to the end of maternity leave and my hopes for the future. And that's when they stop. And that's when I stopped writing. Because I've hardly written poems since. People said, oh, can we have a sequel? I did about half a book's worth of toddler related poems with humour as well, obviously, and the hurdles with that. But what I haven't done is get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and see if I get inspired to write again. I don't do that anymore.
I can't blame you. So tell us about your copywriting, because this is a skill that's. Oh, hang on. Before we go on to that, I've got a comment from Dave Sleet. Most don't realise that baby feeding is not always a case of one and only option that can't evolve as the baby and mum grow together. Interesting, yeah.
Absolutely.
Philip says, I like to write verse, and usually spontaneously. When asked to write a poem on the spot, I replied, there's nothing quite so simple as a pimple. As I say, I only apologise for him. I'm so sorry. So tell us about your copywriting. AIDA, attention, interest, desire, action, right? And I know that only 5% of communication is the written word. 37% or something like that is a tone of voice. Is tone of voice, and the remainder is body language.
Well, for me,
But so if people can engender feelings and get people to take action with words alone, they're only using 5% of the communication. If it's a written, like a long form sales letter as opposed to a video, because you have body language and voice tone in there. And it's a real skill, because I've read some of those sales letters and I'm got my mouse, I'm ready to click, I want to buy it, and I've stopped myself, no, stop. So it's a real, it's a real skill. So tell us, how do you do it?
Well, what happened is during lockdown, I came across somebody who was running a copywriting course with a mentor, and with her as a mentor. And I thought, like, this is perfect timing, because at that point I wasn't able to go back on supply. My son had gone back to school after the home education stint, but I couldn't go back to supply teaching because schools were keeping it all in house because of the risk of COVID. So,
of course, I just realised he was a lockdown baby, wasn't he?
No, he wasn't actually. He's 13.
No?
However, the book came out in 2018.
Oh, hang on, he's how old? Sorry,
he's 13.
Then my maths is completely wrong. For some reason, I thought he was 5. Sorry.
No, he was 5 when the book came out. But the book came out.
Right. Sorry, my timelines were all wrong.
No, sorry. The book was out. The book came out in 2018 when he was 5.
I mean, you could have a field day with poetry about teenagers. Come on.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, don't get me started on that one. Well, I might. You never know. I might be up in the early hours tearing my hair out at 3 o'clock in the morning. So that might be good.
Ross Kane's joined us. He told me he wasn't going to be here today. This is the founder of the Midday Show, Russ Kane. Meet Sarah Davis.
Hello, Sarah Davis. Just going to put a light
on. We've talked
on.
about parenting poetry, and we're just coming on to a subject dear to your
parenting poetry.
Marvelous. I'm
trying to get you in the middle of the thing.
Turn it. That's it. Baby days. We can see it now. Yeah,
that's what we wanted to do.
And the second edition came out a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, the copywriting. So there was that opportunity because people didn't want supply teachers in at that point. My son had gone back to school. It was a perfect opportunity to take on board this course with the mentor, and it was great. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to start my own business doing this. And I'm not a tech person, but I found out that some certain companies can do, like, you can build your own websites with supportive manuals to do it with. And that's what I did. And a month later, I was up and running as a copywriter. And I'd said to my husband, you know, what could I be? You know, what name can I have as a copywriter? You know, I was trying to think, what name could I have? And he was saying, oh, maybe something like sarahcopy.com or something like that. I said, but I want to work with a parent audience. because for me, I wasn't somebody who, you know, I was getting on for 50 and I thought, I haven't got 30 years of working as a copywriter for big brands, but what I've got is 20 plus years of communicating with children and parents, writing policies, documents, newsletters,
It's perfect,
reports.
isn't it? You've almost got the perfect following.
And then I'd got the experience of working with new and expectant mums and the people who work with new and expectant mums through the book, and sales and marketing of a parenting product, as well as, you know, all these sort of the other aspects to it. So I said, I really want to work with that niche, because the copywriters who've been working with the big brands haven't got my experience. And I recognized that. And I thought, actually, this is the route I'm going to go down. And so
choosing your niche is all important. A mistake people make is they try and market to everyone, and you cannot be all things to all people. It's too nuanced. You try and do everything and end up doing nothing. So niching down is very wise.
And what Sarah's making a very interesting point, because certainly in the world of advertising, you get to a certain age, you're too old. That's it. And I was a professional copywriter for most of my working life. And but I got out and did other stuff because I could. And what they don't appreciate, of course, somebody like Sarah, you're bringing those years of experience, of lived experience, and you can be 23 and fabulous and sitting in a, you know, writing the next best novel. It's never going to happen, by the way. And, you know, in a coffee bar, drinking one coffee and causing the coffee bar owners to go bankrupt, and because you're there for 17 hours. They forget experience.
Yeah. And
they
so
forget that.
I think, you know, for me, I cared passionately about what you were saying earlier, Neil, about how there are people who've got wonderful businesses, but they're struggling with the marketing. And what I could see is
so common.
There are loads of people out there who are, they've got amazing businesses, but they're not connecting with the people who need their products and services the most. So I could see all these people who desperately needed those products and services, and I could see the people who are providing them. And I see myself as the connector. So connection is a big word for me in my business. And what I do with my clients is, and I think it's from being a teacher, I listened and I wanted the best for the people that I worked with. I wanted the children to be able to shine, to enjoy what they were doing, to go out and kind of shine their bright light, to achieve and be the best they could be. And I feel the same about the clients that I work with. So the first thing I do is I have a 60 to 90 minute call. I don't do copywriting from briefs, because
you don't.
That's not going to be the way to do it. So what I do instead is have a 60 to 90 minute call, and I dig deep down with them, with their journey that's brought them to where they are now. And all those little light bulb moments pop, because they're like, oh, I didn't realize that my kind of desire to do this went quite back as far as it did. So I kind of draw out of them their passion, their joy, their things that give them their biggest buzz in their working day, as well as talking about their ideal clients, their unique selling points. And at the end of the day, their unique selling point is them, I tell them, and it's everything they bring to the table with them.
Is that in every case, Sarah, though?
When I write website copy for people, that's how I do it. Because and if I'm writing blog posts for people, for, you know, if I take on a new blog post client, I used to write 7 blog posts a month for one particular client, but I often write 1 blog post a month for others. But for me, I do that dig deep down bit, because I take pages of notes during the conversation, and that's how, for me, it's the way, in my own particular style. I know everybody works differently, but for me, that's how I hear the language they use. That's how I hear their tone, their vibrance, you know, their uniqueness. And I love doing that as well. And I also coach people to write copy now myself.
You're absolutely right about getting the tone and the voice, because I used to write a lot of scripts, and they'd say, well, that's not right. I said, no, read it as you. I've written it for you, for that particular actor or that particular personality because I know their speech rhythms. I said, now read it just that you. Don't get me to read it. And they went, oh. And I went, yeah.
Yeah.
Because when I write
Yeah.
it, I'm writing with your voice in my head, not with
Yeah.
my voice in my head. I always do that.
Because
Very
people
important
said
to do that.
sorry, people said about it's not authentic if somebody else writes it, and it is if it's authentically them, if it's their values, their vision, their
Yeah, of
voice,
course it is. That's
then it
nonsense.
absolutely is
Yeah.
authentic.
You know,
Absolutely.
but that's such a silly argument. You're absolutely right, Sarah. It's a stupid argument. I'll tell you why. You know, if you're a bread manufacturer, let's say you're Warburton's bread or so, I'm not making it up, doesn't matter. Pick a product, Warburton's bread, doesn't matter. You know, you don't expect Willie Warburton, who's the marketing director, to write everything because he's not a gifted writer. I can't make bread. I can't do distribution. Not what I do, not what you do. So it's a fallacious argument to say, well, it's not authentic. Of course it's authentic. If you capture the essence of the organization or the essence of that individual.
I love that you've said that, actually, because one of the clients I worked for was a nanny in America, and she'd been a nanny for years and years. She hadn't had her own children. She'd not been able to have her own children. She'd got 15 nieces and nephews, and she'd brought up her, she'd helped to bring up her siblings. And she said, I'd do this for free if I could. She just loved what she did. And she said with the people she was taking on with the agency, she said, you can teach somebody, as she said in America, diapers. You can teach somebody to change a diaper, but you can't teach somebody empathy. So she said, I grill the people coming to work in my agency to within an inch of their life to make sure that I get the right people who are empathetic. And when I'd finished writing her copy, she sent me a thank you, and she said, I don't need to change anything. She said, you've captured the essence of me. Oh, it nearly made me cry, honestly. Because
And that's an incredible gift to be able to do that, isn't it? Because it really does take stepping back and putting yourself in the other person's shoes.
Well, you've got to say, what do they want to... I always sat down and kind of still do as a seller, but it's a slightly different thing. So I'm not selling a product. But you say, well, what do you want to achieve?
Yeah.
At the end of this conversation, I don't mean this conversation, but what do you want to achieve? Do you want more sales? Do you want people to understand you? Do you want to explain the product, et cetera, et cetera? What is it you want? And without that, you've got aims, you know, what I used to put, aims and objectives. You know, what's your aims? What's your objective? Without that structure, you're wasting your time. The other thing is, Sarah, let me ask you this. I'm fascinated. And Neil, thank you for arranging this. I hugely appreciate it.
Pleasure.
When I was in ad agencies, as the senior copywriter, and I'd work with the creative director, etc., I'd always go, God, I wish I could draw like you guys do. And they'd always, and we're still friends, and say, well, I could teach you to draw. I said, you couldn't. I said, well, anyone can write. He said, I couldn't do that. And it's so fascinating how I couldn't draw, and you could try and teach me for a year and I wouldn't have improved. I think you can teach people basic stuff. I could always teach somebody basic copywriting skills.
That's what I do in my workshops.
But you're never going to get to that level because that's why they would employ you.
So what we do sometimes is with my workshops, they have then the option to kind of upscale for me to then do a copy edit of what they've done. So that's like a kind of middle version, as you know. So it's like there's either people writing their own copy, or you have done for you service like I do as well, or you can have a copy editor where you can write your own and somebody will come in and help with readability and flow, help sort out things like grammar and things like that. Not as a proofreader, but actually help with the kind of the editing for the audience as well, bearing the audience in mind and all of those things. So quite different to a proofreader, obviously. But what I do with my workshops is I give people prompts to get them writing, first of all, loads of information down. We do an hour workshops, and it's an online workshop, and I give them prompts to help them to be thinking about their journey, their motivation, the biggest buzz in their working day, their ideal clients, all of those things. And I get them to just write rough notes, copious rough notes. And then I give them a basic, like you say, basic structure to slot things into. So it's like, well, into this structure, you can include here 3 sentences from this section that we talked about. So they're using their own notes and they're pulling things out of their own notes. So by the end of the hour, they've got a draft piece of copy that they can then go away and work on. Because the hardest thing that I find most people find is that writing those first few words on their page.
Yes.
You've got to take a big leap of faith. Got to take a big leap of faith and just start writing. You know, there's always that heart-stopping moment, which I've kind of trained myself to get out of because I'm writing all the time. And you're staring at a blank screen, what used to be a blank piece of paper. When I have my electric typewriter, yes, I'm that old. But then you have a blank screen, you think, shit, nothing.
But
nothing.
I find the muse. We were talking about this before you came on, Russ. The muse, the mystical muse, and it strikes when you're because I don't know if you saw the first bit, but Sarah was talking about writing wonderful in flow state poetry, and it was all inspired from when she was doing her first feed with her newborn, and we broke it down because we talk about that quite a lot on the show, and it's being in a relaxed state and an open state, being present.
I always ask you about that, Neil, because you're very, very big on it. It's
and being in the state that you want to be in this case, a mum. So it was the perfect conditions. The conditions were right to allow it to flow. But the muse always strikes when for me, I could sit there try and write, because I do stand-up comedy, Sarah, and I'll try and write something, and I think, oh.
And he's bloody good, by the way.
And then thank you. But then someone will say something, and I'll think, oh, hang on, in a totally different context, and then bang, this idea will drop.
There's a gag.
And I think, yes, it's obviously different from copywriting, obviously.
Well, it isn't. It isn't. It isn't. Yes,
because for an audience.
You're not trying to make people laugh, but Neil, break it down. I'm sure, and I missed the first bit, but break it down. Who's your target audience, right? What is your aim? What are you trying to achieve? All of those things. That's what a gag is. You know, here's a gag. I'm going to tell you a gag. I've told you the gag. Now you've been told the gag. That's basically how it works. You know.
And I think when I'm writing, what I say to people about writing for parents, I think is a particular skill. Because it needs to be clear and concise, because they're busy, tired, stressed often. Yes. Unless you're a super parent, who I haven't met anybody that's never tired, busy or stressed when they're a new parent, but there you go.
Can I ask you a question? Can I ask you a question? You've made a really, really fascinating point. I think somebody who did women a huge disservice, and I can't remember her surname. Her first name was Nicola. And they dubbed her this superwoman. It's going back some time. You might be too young to remember it. And she
wasn't Super Nanny or something, was it?
No, not Super Nanny. She was a businesswoman, and she juggled this huge business, and she had all these children, and she did all this, and they're super. And I think it made people who were in the same boat feel very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I feel like I must have failed, and I thought it was bullshit.
And this is what we were talking about again before you came on. You think you're the only one with social media, and you're not. And what you've just described there, Russ, is actually the road to burnout, unless she's on some.
You never hear from her anymore. You never hear her. She was a big deal, and I can't remember her surname there. Right. It was Nicola something.
How many jobs do you take on at one time, Sarah?
Good question. It does vary, because what I was going to say, though, as well as being clear and concise, it has to inspire trust and confidence and be really nurturing, because this is these people's children that they're buying products and services for, and their families, so they need to have that trust and confidence and that nurture element. And so I actually work with a lot of coaches as well, because when I'm talking like I do, like about what I love doing, how I love working with parents and things, they say, well, my business is nothing to do with parents, but the way you've spoken with passion and enjoyment and loving what you do, I'd like you to work for me. I work for somebody who...
That's a key component, loving what you do. If you would do it for nothing, but let's put it this way, people will pay me to do what I love. Hell yes. It's a bit like the Japanese ikigai concept, if you're familiar. It's what you can be paid for, what you love, what you're good at. And it's like the Venn diagram, and you get the bit in the middle. That's the Japanese call that ikigai. It's the sweet spot.
So I wrote a press release statement, because I write website copy, blog copy. I've written an script for an educational games app, wording for box packaging, all sorts of things. But I wrote a press release statement for a client who sent it to a journalist. She got interviewed live on BBC Two TV News with a full business plug.
Yeah.
And she used to call me her business angel, because she used to just contact me. I'm thinking of doing this in my business. What do you think? And so she'd have a chat with me about all sorts of things. I've written for a financial advisor and a feather hat pin designer. An event planner.
Hat pin designer?
Now, what's the essence? Now you've intrigued me. What is
get
the
a
essence
pin
of a hat
kind
pin
of
designer? How
50%
do you do
there.
that?
She had she lived in Scotland, where there were lots of game feathers all over the place,
Sure.
and she made them into
game feathers. Sorry, I missed.
They were
Game,
feathers,
Russ.
game feathers, yeah,
Sorry.
game bird feathers.
Yeah.
And so she made them into pins for hats, fancy hats, and they were at
That's
badminton
cute.
trials and all kinds of things.
That's
So
cute.
yeah, so I help.
Speaking of Scotland, you see, look, Sarah, immediately you mentioned Scotland. Up comes Sue Sleep from Fife. Hey, the new.
And Philip Harling says the lady we were talking about was Nicola Horlick.
Yeah, she was.
I guess she got tired, made herself a bedtime drink, and never woke up.
Yay!
Hey, thank you very much.
Yeah, she married Miss Grobel.
But so in terms of jobs that I do, you were asking, it varies, because if I take on full website copy, that's a bigger project for people. At one point, I was writing 7 blogs a month just for one client. So I did 140 blog posts for that one client. But I often write just one blog post or a blog post in a new.
And because every job you do is different, it must keep it fresh and exciting all the time.
It does. And what I like about it is that I can do ad hoc projects, like I can do a press release statement, like I do a press package, a press pitch, a press release statement for people. I also do, like, as I say, website copy. So that's a bigger thing. But then writing regular blogs is great as well, because I really know my client well, and it's easy to just drop back into their voice. And so, you know, and that's, I love doing that as well.
Sarah, have you ever turned down a client and said, you know what, in your head, I mean, these are not the words you say to your client, you find it more polite, say, this guy, this person, I can't work with this person, and walk away?
Well,
I'm guessing you have.
You must do. No, absolutely. Life's too short.
Yeah, and I do feel like, I do have that.
Only going to get worse.
And I remember somebody suggested me, they referred me to 2 clients. One was the nanny in America.
Right.
The other was a nannying agency in the UK.
Right.
I spoke to both of them.
Right.
The nanny in America, I just gelled with immediately, because her values were like my values. The nannying agency in the UK, they worked with high income parents. They didn't see any need to be warm in their copy, or encouraging, inviting, nurturing.
No, strictly business-like.
It's a business for them. It's volume, isn't it? Volume.
I thought I could write copy for them. I don't really want to. So within that, within the next hour, when they'd said, you're not for us, I was like, fantastic, because do you know what? You're not for me.
I normally get in first and I go, I don't think, I do it very politely.
Yeah.
I did it last week and I said, I don't think I'm the right person for you.
That was early days.
I'm going to go back and I'll get you somebody else.
It was early days for me.
Because it was a ghastly phone call, introductory phone call. And they were so aggressive. I thought, you know what? Life is just too short. I don't want to work with you. You sound vile. Yeah. And they were.
The other thing I would say is, when you say, how much do I do? Because I also run a networking group as well. I have a Facebook group with 2,300 roughly people in it. And it's for people whose ideal clients are parents, small business owners whose ideal clients are parents, because that was the Facebook group I was looking for. There were groups for mums in business. There weren't groups of people who work with parents. So I started one. Again, an accident.
That's the 4th one.
Yeah. And then I had a 5th accident, because then I thought, when I was going to in like online networking, I thought I'd love to help people, to introduce people from my group to each other in the online space. So so I did a few freebie 40-minute ones, because at that point it was the 40-minute Zooms. So I did a few of those for free, got inundated. So I thought, I'm going to have to work out how to set this up. So, went down the kind of the whole route then of making it a subscription group, and it's been going for 3.5 years.
Wow.
And it's branched out. So it's instead of just weekly networking, so we do an hour's weekly networking each week, and people can come for a free taster session. So we're constantly getting new fresh faces in. But we also have a weekly 1 hour brainstorming session, mastermind session, where we all get together and help each other out with, because as a small business owner, you have to wear all the hats unless you can afford to
Very
delegate.
much so. And the mastermind group can be very powerful. You get the right people in there.
So we do
And
that.
I've never heard of the phrase.
Mastermind group.
No, I know the show. I know the show.
No, that's the thing. No, it's brainstorming.
No.
Right, here's a question coming from the Eastern United States for you, Sarah. Sarah, have you ever found yourself at odds with the topic or agenda of a client?
Have I? Yes.
There's your answer, Razor.
Yeah, no need to expand more.
Yeah.
Sarah, it's been absolutely lovely to talk to you, and a fascinating conversation. And I've learned stuff from talking to you, and it's also validated stuff that I've been sort of working out as I stumble through life. Where the muse comes from, how things can unfold organically if we let them. And happy, and may you have many more happy accidents, because that seems to be your MO. You sort of accidentally just do these brilliant things. So sorry, I didn't mean to. I just wrote a bestseller. Sorry.
As Freud said, Sarah, there is no such thing as an accident.
I've sold over 1,300 copies of Baby Days now as well, and it's just I love
and it's
what
available
I do.
on Amazon, yeah.
It's available on Amazon, yeah, and on my website.
It's Baby Days, isn't it? D-A-Z-E. I'll hold it up again. Just turn it slightly because the lights. That's it. Hold it there.
It's the second edition published by Malba Books.
But I love the title as well, Baby Days. Yeah, I get it.
Absolutely in a haze.
Never.
Really.
Sarah, thank you so much.
Yeah, I was going to say, so I run those as well. And
so you were going to say what?
I was just going to say, so we have brainstorming sessions, we have co-working sessions as well to help each other with accountability and support, and we do the networking. So that's called Parenting Business Connections, and I haven't got as far as mentioning that, but that's for small business owners who work with parents.
And all of this people can find on your website, yeah?
Yeah.
theparentingcopywriter.co.uk.
And there's also the Parenting Business Connections, if there's any small business owners out there who want that support and encouragement, that's called parentingbusinessconnections.com, that website.
All right, give me a moment. I'm going to pop that on the screen. Just give me a second.
You're pretty good at this marketing malarkey.
Thank you.
Parenting Business Connections.
Parentingbusinessconnections.com.
And also Sarah Davis Roofing and Tiling.co.uk. Swimming pool cleaning department.
But it's all interlinked,
Interplanetary travel and time traveling with Sarah Davis.
No, that's next week.
That's not me. But the book relates to the copy. The book led to the copywriting. The copywriting led to Parenting Business Connections, and it's all just authentically there. It's just
for someone that considers themselves a reasonably good business person, but like me is shit at marketing. What would you say to them apart from call you?
Well, call you. That's the end of the conversation.
I would say speak from the heart. With passion and honesty. Tell them why you do what you do, because that will inspire them to trust and be confident in your products and you as a service provider.
Because one of the, I mentioned him earlier in the interview, Joe Vitale, and he's probably one of the biggest and best marketers on the planet. And he said it for all the techniques, for all the clever use of language, for all the all the loops in language to make people think in a certain way, for all that stuff, it boils down to if people know you, like you, and trust you.
Yeah,
and it's that simple.
Absolutely key.
So, Sarah,
to be
this is coming in from Sydney, Australia. Michelle Vaughan. Sounds like an interesting read. We'll have a look.
Thank you.
See, that's Michelle. So you got Northeastern United States and Sydney, Australia. Back to Northeastern United States. Sarah, I enjoyed your conversation with Neil and Russ. He's from Alabama suddenly. I don't know why.
So did I.
There we are.
It's been lovely. What I'll do, Sarah, as promised, I'll send you the footage of this, if I may. Feel free to slice and dice it, use it for any purposes you like. and maybe keep in touch and maybe come back and see us again sometime.
Oh, I'd love to. Thank you. Thank you very
Keep in
much.
touch. Sarah Davis, thank you very
Sarah
much.
Davis, ladies and gentlemen.
Bye.
Bye.
Hello.
Hello there. Right. Glastonbury.
I
Glastonbury.
thought
Right.
you might have something to
I'm
say about
going
this.
there.
Go on.
I'm freaking going there, right? I'm going there. Glastonbury. If they don't arrest that piece of crap,
What,
if they
Bob
don't
Villan?
arrest him, if they don't
Bob
arrest
Villan?
him, yeah.
Is that who you're talking about, Bob
Yeah,
Villan?
that's exactly who I'm talking about. And kneecap, handicap, as I call them, kneecap. What the hell? Either arrest him or let Lucy Connolly out of jail. This is disgusting. This is disgusting. This country has had enough of this shit. We've had enough of this shit. It's got to stop. Got to stop, and it's got to stop now. And do it legally before the country says, sorry, we're not listening to you anymore. Enough's enough. And then you're going to have a whole pile of trouble on your hands. You don't want that. No one in their right mind wants that. Sort it out. Have some balls and sort it out.
It's
disgusting.
It's meant to be a music festival, a celebration of music. For me, it's not the place to tout political messages.
Or advocate murder. Don't advocate murder. And I have to say, and I'm sorry, for the organisers at Glastonbury, the Evis fan, Emily Evis, right, to put out that weak, pathetic little flimsy excuse. Oh, we really like you, all peace and love. Bullshit. This guy had a whole history. You can look him up. You know the acts you're getting. It's not a mystery. It's not a surprise package, for Christ's sake. You know exactly the acts that you are booking. You know what they're going to do. You see their history. There's enough YouTube footage of it. You could have cut them. And as for the BBC, not only should the people who let that through be fired, they should also be prosecuted. Why was that feed not shut off?
I don't know.
Don't give me freedom of speech. There's a difference between freedom of speech and advocating murder. That is not the same thing.
No, it's not.
It's not the same damn thing. And stop hiding behind, but it's freedom of speech. It's artistic. Right. Okay. So if we turned it round and went to another demographic and said, kill all these people, that would be fine now, would it? This is unacceptable.
Freedom of speech is a privilege, and it's not an excuse to abuse your fellow man. That's not freedom of speech. That's abuse. And it's as simple as that. On a brighter note, the Prodigy were brilliant.
Were they good?
Even without Keith Flint, because he sadly died. But
he died a few years ago. Yeah.
My young colleague at work who watched it, she said Prodigy were absolutely amazing, and she likes a dance banger, that one. So the Prodigy was really, really good. Neil Young, apparently, he was a bit disappointed for a headline set. Rod Stewart absolutely rocked it.
Neil Young, for Christ's sake, Neil Young, give up. Stop it.
Olivia Rodrigo was fantastic. That song Vampire. Oh, YouTube the song Vampire. It's amazing. Olivia Rodrigo.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here's the irony. I know it's been said many times in the columns. Neil, if you've got to go, I understand, but I've got to get this off.
No, you carry on, fella. I had a feeling I might see you today.
First of all, Evis, Sir Michael Evis, big friend of Jeremy Corbyn, tells you everything you need to know. Everything you need to know. That creep, Owen Jones was there. And just the scum of the earth, just horrible, awful, god-awful people, right? More security at Glastonbury than there are on our borders. More security at Glastonbury, which is free, everybody's welcome, is bullshit. You're such hypocrites with watchtowers and areas where you can be held if you try to sneak in without having paid your £400 a ticket. Stop the hypocrisy, please. It's meant to be a music festival. I knew it would be a shit show, and I wasn't wrong. And I take no delight in saying that, but even I had hoped it wouldn't be as disgusting. And the irony that Pratt takes the name Villain instead of Bob Dylan. What's he calls himself? Rob Villain. What's he calls himself?
Bob Villain.
Bob Villain. Bob Dylan's Jewish, you moron. Bob Dylan's Jewish. You take his name. I hope the Avon and Somerset police take action, if not private prosecutions. That's what I hope for. It's absolutely unacceptable. Or or you say it's acceptable and it's a free ride for everybody else. Okay? It's a free ride for everybody. We can all say what we want, and we can all chant for particular people that we don't like to be killed. And if that's what you want, good luck with that. You got a country here that is seething. Seething. They've had enough. Do it properly by proper channels, or you're going to have one hell of a problem on your hands. You see it a mile off. And Rod, thank God for Rod Stewart. Thank God for Rod.
And the Prodigy.
And the Prodigy. And I have to say, to end on a
And
wonderful
Olivia
note,
Rodrigo.
Lulu looked just marvelous.
She does, doesn't she?
She looked. Hats off to whoever styled Lulu and made her beautiful suit. She looked great. Just
can you
fantastic.
wish me luck for tonight, please?
Of course I can. My
Because
jump.
I've
What's
got
going on?
five minutes at the Comedy Store Gong Show.
Oh my God! It's tonight.
It's tonight. Okay, I've got to do my best 5 minutes and try and survive 5 minutes.
Right, we're running over, but it's our show. We can, unless you've got an urgent appointment. I want to say something about Neil. All right. He's braver than I am. We discussed this. I do an hour and a half show. Neil does his.
Oh, shut up.
There is no way. Come back, please. Come back. There is no way. Can we get rid of this banner, Longy?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
She's had enough free publicity. There is no way on earth you could pay me enough money to do the Comedy Store. It would terrify me. For Neil to do this, and I've seen his show, and it's funny
become
as
kind
hell
of personal,
and all the rest of it, but it's really brave.
Can I tell you why it's personal? Because back in the day, these gong shows weren't as common, and the Comedy Store was you would have like 3 really big acts. Simon Bly was a big name at the time, but it's the equivalent of the Harry Hills, the Michael McIntyres, Ian Stones, those kind of massive names.
Yeah.
And then they had these little 5-minute open spots that could be anyone, and that was me. Okay, there were 2. The other open spot was already headlining in New York. That's the level I was up against. Jesus. And I died on my sorry ass.
Died on your ass.
I died in front of this packed Comedy Store. Oh. So it's become kind of personal to me.
Awful.
I really want to have another go.
Do you need support? You got friends coming with, or what? You got pals coming?
You want to pop up? You won't be turned away.
Not in this heat. I don't particularly.
It's all right. I'm only doing 5 minutes. I'll let you know how it goes on Wednesday.
You know that we've known each other. Well, I don't know, 35 years. I don't know how. I'm trying to lost the plot, but you know that I would be there. If you want me to support you, I will come and support you. If you really need, if you think you need it, I don't.
No, I'll be all right. I'll be all right, fella.
I want to say this. Sometimes in life, there's something that bugs us, and Neil is just showing such a brilliant freaking example of this, and you did it and it blew up in your face. You thought, shit, I'm a failure and this, that and the other.
And my agent was there. It was when I was at Capital. I went round telling everyone at Capital that I was going to be at the Comedy Store, and luckily no one came.
Oh, thank Christ.
That would have been awful.
No, I know. I wasn't so lucky, but it's a very, very long story when I died on the South Bank show. Died like you can't believe, and didn't go on stage for many, many, many years after that. That cover, because I was so. It's so interesting. You get so disgusted with yourself. You blame yourself. You can't blame. It's such a complicated mental issue of blaming yourself, having to pick yourself up and dust yourself down, not think that you're a piece of crap and that you do have talent. It's all those things.
Thanks, Dave.
And that's why I think it's so damn brave of you. And I hope you kill it tonight. I hope you smash it out the park.
The thing is, there's another one called Up the Creek. You obviously know Up the Creek Comedy Club in Greenwich.
Yeah.
The resident MC there is legendary. He was called Malcolm Hardy. Now, again, back in the 90s.
Yes, he passed away, right?
He did, yeah. He had a tragic accident. But he was resident MC there. And the legend goes that back in the day, someone fell asleep in the front row. So he pissed on the guy in the front row to wake him up. That's the legend of Up the Creek, right? It gets better. What he would do is, again, it wasn't like Gong Show. It was like all the big acts and the open spots. He made it was like the Colosseum. Honestly,
Yeah,
it was.
you're throwing the
It was
Christians
brutal.
to the
He would,
lions. It's
he would
guns.
pull out a little bell and say, "Do you know what time it is?" And 400 Bermondsey boys would go, "Dinner time!" And then they'd start chanting, "Bring on the Christians!
Oh, God.
Bring on the Christian!" And to that, this poor 5-minute open spot had to come on. Now they do beat the blackout, but you get 2 minutes safe there. Your first 2 minutes is safe. And then people with the cards, and you get 3 cards, you're out. They hold up a card if they want you off. But at a comedy store, there's no 2 minute safety. And it's more for the audience. It's more kind of baiting show for the audience.
It's revolting.
Rather than to benefit the comedian. Because, if they don't like, I've heard people have got gonged off, and these are comedians that I know, and they're same level as me, open mic, cusp of semi-professional, maybe even semi-professional already, slightly ahead of me. But they've got gonged off for they didn't like their T-shirt, for God's sake, and they got gonged off.
It's
so
pathetic.
I'm not going
to. It's horrible ego-driven bullshit. What it is horrible ego-driven bullshit of the people who think that's their little moment of power, getting rid of somebody. Give people a damn chance. Give people a chance.
Well, you come and remonstrate with them tonight, Russ. You come and tell them.
The thing about it is, Longy, everybody gave them a chance at one point. At one point in their lives, whoever these idiots are, they got a chance. So be courteous. Be the bigger person.
Yeah.
Take a higher moral ground and get somebody else a chance.
It's a classic story, Paul. Yes, and it is true. Everyone's heard the Up the Creek stories. Just before we go, I was recommended a book today called Reconnection. And it sounds really interesting. It's someone that went on a digital detox, gave up their mobile phone, and went pretty much to a monastery for 8 weeks. And they measured the brain before and after.
Yeah.
And apparently the differences were phenomenal. I might download and read it on the tube on the way tonight. I'm going up to the comedy store because I'm really interested in that. So I'll let you know about that on Wednesday. Also Wednesday, we've got another lovely guest, and her name is, one moment,
Diana Dawes.
No.
Jane Mansfield.
No, Florence Ackery, who we're going to be talking to on Wednesday. And very much looking forward to talking to Florence. Well, is that it then? Are we done?
That is it. Yes, thank you. Thank you. Yes, excellent. Thank you so much. Lovely guest. Bravo to you. And I want to wish you not luck. I just be Neil Long. And if they don't like it, it's their loss.
I know you've been bigging me up, but I'll say it in public. Your stand-up comedy was very good as well. Very, very good.
You're very kind, but it's a very different style.
Yours is long form. Absolutely.
I couldn't do what you do. I couldn't do it.
No, but you are a natural storyteller, so you do it very, very well. And you're a natural performer. Oh, come on. I've seen you doing your pantos back in the day. Come on.
No,
stop being so fucking humble. Take the compliment, dude.
You're very sweet. Yeah. If I could do that, I'd be a better person. Longy, right. Enjoy and let it all go really well. Bye-bye.
I will see you soon, my friend. And the rest of you lovely watchers and listeners, I'll catch you on Wednesday with Florence Ackery as a special guest. Good afternoon.
Florence and I can't think of it. I was trying to think of a word that's machine, that's like Neil Long, and it doesn't work. Gags failed. We'll take it out.